we've had this collection here from about May 2011, and it's still here about 2013, which is great, a great period of time to look at. There's lots of information taken about it, and with not many people knowing about the Hittites, it's really a lot of interest. I find it really interesting. Quite difficult to research though, trying to track down kind of information about it. I find it's a real struggle when you don't know that much. So what I'll do before talking about the artefact is just give you a bit of information. If you don't already know about the Hittites, or if you haven't looked at the collection yet, just give you a little bit of information about it. So the Hittites were an ancient civilization dating back to about 2000 BC. And they've only ever really been mentioned in ancient literature, such as the Bible or Homer's famous Odyssey. Their capital was a place called Hittite, which was about north-central Turkey. So if we just look up here, that was their capital city, and it was known as the city of 1,000 gods. Yeah, it was known as the city of 1,000 gods. And their empire went down into what's now Syria and Iraq as well. So they had quite a large empire, and it was really rich in important metals such as bronze as well. They're mostly a forgotten civilization. Like I said, it's really difficult to research them. And with our collection, what we mainly focus on is a professor called John Garstan, who about 100 years ago went to Turkey and did a dig and found lots of different objects and artefacts. And if we go into the tent a little bit later, you can see all the photos that he took from his dig with his wife. So that's kind of what we mainly kind of base ours on with John Garstan. While the empire was believed to be really powerful and strong, it did start to decline due to constantly being at war. The yellow that you see on the map is the border with Egypt, which obviously now is Jordan and Israel, and further down is Egypt. But that was a border, and there was a lot of fighting on that border, whether it was of territory, looking after their own territory, or trying to gain new territory. There seemed to be a lot of fighting, so the empire started to decline. Eventually, it actually crumbled about 1000 BC, and that was due to a group called the Sea People. There's not much really written about the Sea People. When you try to research the Sea People, not much comes up. It simply states that they were believed to be a group of diverse origins and not one single culture. So not a single culture. But they did cause the empire to eventually crumble, and they also had the same problem with Egypt. While Egypt didn't crumble, they were known to kind of get into wars and attacks with Egypt. So while it crumbled in 1000 BC, it was believed that post-empire states and small kingdoms under the Assyrian rule may survive to about 700 BC. So it was about 1,300 kind of years or so, which, it's a long period of time. But like I said, because they're a mostly forgotten civilization, there doesn't seem to be that much information about it, only kind of limited reading. The Hittites appear to have spoken about 8 different languages from the Indo-European language family. This includes modern English, German, Persian, the languages of India, and also Latin. However, the main official written languages were, excuse the way I'm going to say these, quite difficult words, Akkadian, Hurrian, and eventually Nesite, which was a specialised Hittite script of approximately 375 cuneiform signs. Cuneiform was one of the earliest known forms of writing, and it comes from the Latin word cunus, which means wedges. I've got another little handout, and you'll be able to see exactly why it was called wedges, because all the letters were entirely triangular and wedge shaped, so it talks about the kind of the shape of the letters and how they're formed in a wedge-like way. So that's just a little bit of background kind of about the Hittites, the cuneiforms, the area, the empire that they had. The artifact, what we're going to look at, is something called seals. And these were used as an administrative tool, jewellery, and as a magical amulet. Now, these seals were these long tubes here. And what these seals did were a way of signing a letter. So they were usually made out of metal or stone or clay. They were engraved, and then they were pushed across wet clay make this indent here, and this was usually a signature. So, once again, I'll just pass a few of these around so you can have a little look. So, like I said, these seals were used to stamp or roll across some clay. It would be a way of signing a letter or marking a property. And it would also, a lot of the time, show kind of what their job was and what their name was. So most seals had gods and humans scribed into them, and often their owner's name. And the reason it was used as a signature was because not many people could actually write. So they would have scribes to say write a letter or write a document or write, say, a trading piece, and then they would sign it. So there were actually two types of seals. The one that you produce that you've got currently is the cylinder seals. So they were usually quite short, and they were rounded with a hole through the middle, and they were put on a piece of string and usually kept around your neck like jewellery, like what I've said. And they were rolled across the clay, whereas the other ones we had were stamps, which were simply round. Obviously, the thing you have to remember about the cylinder seals is when you're rolling it across, when you actually do the seal itself, you have to write everything backwards, so that when you put it across, it says it the right way. Something that I would probably forget when doing it. But yes, later on, so obviously these cylinders were engraved. Later on, they actually did them where they were raised outwards and then pushed into cloth. So while these were engraved, the other ones were outwards.
Excuse me?
Yes.
How big are they?
Not that large, no, they were quite small. I've got a little one that we kind of made. Over time, the size and shape has changed, but they weren't huge. They weren't large at all. But I have seen pictures of much longer ones and fatter ones as well. But like I said, that has changed over time, so probably be around about this size. Not that large, but what could be is a very distinctive piece of jewellery as well. So those were the cylinder seals that we had. And like I said, with them being jewellery, they could also be used as amulets. With having gods on them, a lot of people believe that would warn off bad spirits. So, you know, especially with children, I know Romans did the same. They would put an amulet of some sort around the neck to try and ward off spirits until they were seen as an adult. So it could be used as a magical amulet as well. The other ones we have were stamp seals, which I will pass around a picture of the stamp seals, which were probably the size of a coin, if not smaller, and they were just simply round, quite flat, with an engraving in it. So on this one, if you have a look quite closely on it, in the middle we've got the owner, the title, the owner, and on the outside you've got many different things. We've got a seated god holding a bird with a stag's head, an altar, a bird-headed figure pouring a liquid offering, and a king making an offering. Now, many seals did have animal carvings in them, but mainly from what we can see, they were more interested in kind of gods and religion. Like I said, I think it probably had to do with the fact that they wanted to warn off evil spirits, bad spirits, and so they were more interested in that, but animals were very important to them as well. Eventually, stamp seals could be made into a ring, so there has been pictures of ones that were rings to be pushed down, other ones with handles on the back as well. And obviously I think when you say stamp seals to people, the thing that comes into their mind is the wax stamp seals, of course, the hot wax that were put on the back of envelopes and then eventually stamped. So you can see how it's changed from cylinder seals being rolled across clay to eventually being hot wax and stamped in around about medieval times. So, like I've mentioned, these seals were usually for letters, for trade, things like that. And for letters it was really, really important. They would write the letter or have the letter scribed them, roll it across the bottom. They'd then cover it in an envelope. But on the outside of the envelope, the exact same letter would be written and re-signed. It would then be left to dry and say if there was a discrepancy, they could go back to that. But the reason they had the letter on the outside as well was that if it came to them and it was cracked, it obviously has been tampered with, so the letter would confirm exactly what the details were. So they were really clever about it as well. I think that's kind of a great thing to do. I think it was the same with the wax seal as well. If a person was delivering a letter and the wax seal was broken, it's probably been tampered with. So it was just a way of deciphering exactly what they were doing. So I've actually got one of those as well that I can have a look at, just a replica of what a letter would look like. Once again, like I said, made out of clay, and it is in 2 separate pieces. So